Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order, acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel. With me are Carrie Linklater and Clay Purvis. The secretary is Crystal Harland, and the assessor is Arif Dost Muhammad. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application. We will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing, and issues a written order that have been mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence upon an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. This session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. Excuse me. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information on public is live stream and recorded and part of the public record. We'll be hearing item 3 on their docket today. Mrs. Harland, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Assessor, would you please state your full name?
Arif Dost Muhammad.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, thank you for standing. Would you please state your full name?
Jared Story.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I said good morning, everyone. The only property on today's agenda is 737 Morey. So, Mr. Dost Muhammad, you can proceed on this one.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Board revision file number 24-2561, roll number 0708128450. Address is 737 Morey Street. The current owner is Winnipeg Limited. Roll year is 2025. Reference date is April 1st, 2023. Assessed value is $8,116,000. Parcel use code is industrial light manufacturing. Number of buildings is 3. Number of premises is 1. Number of stories is 1. Actual year built ranges between 1976 and 2007. Effective year built ranges between 1988 and 2007. Wall heights are at 18 feet. Zoning is M2 manufacturing general. Land area is 206,561. Plan area is 89,274 square feet. Same with the gross floor area and leasable area, both 89,274 square feet. Land to plan area is 2.31 to 1. If you turn to my page 10, let me know when you're there.
Yep.
Okay, so on page 10 is the map of the subject. It is located in the northwest quadrant of the city, close to the airport. On page 11 is the subject parcel boundaries. So you can see it's located on the southeast corner of Morey Street and Salto Crescent. At the bottom is the site plan. On page 12 is some overhead views of the subject property. Same with page 13 and page 14. And then on page 15 is the street views from Google Maps. Same with page 16. And top of page 17. And then at the bottom of page 17, we have some photos from an inspection that was done on December 1st, 2023. So there is the front foyer. On page 18, some more pictures of the foyer. And then page 19, you have an office and then some cubicles in there. Page 20, the photo of a lunchroom. Then on page 21 is photos of the warehouse. And they continue on onto page 22, page 23, page 24, and 25. On page 26 is the building section. So you can see the three different buildings. All of the buildings have 18-foot wall heights. One of the buildings was built in 1976, another in 1988, and another one in 2007. You'll note down at the bottom, this was the income and expense mailer that was submitted, and there's just a note in there. The only note is that it was a newly acquired property late in 2022. There was no expenses because they had just acquired the property, so they weren't privy to the previous expenses. On page 27 is a subject listing from May 2021 for the property. On page 28, you'll see down at the bottom there, 737 Morey Street is listed for sale in the amount of $9,500,000. And you'll note the comments there. The comments state that it's a desirable manufacturing facility. It's conveniently located within the Morey Industrial Park. There's extensive power for manufacturing ranging from 1.5 or 1,500 amps to 3,000 amps. It also indicates that the roof was completed or replaced in 2019. So that's from May 2021. On the following page, you'll see that the listing there from October 21 and the building is still listed there, so it hasn't sold in October 2021. On page 30 is the full listing from Stevenson. I just went over the property highlights. The only other thing I'll mention is they indicate that there's 4 loading docks, or 4 dock doors and 2 grade doors, so 6 loading areas altogether. And they also state there is a roof ceiling height, clearing height of 12 to 17 feet. On page 32 is some of their own pictures. So again, the office space. On page 33, the manufacturing space. On page 35 is a sales mailer that was submitted by Winnipeg to the city. So on there, you'll note that there was a sale on this property for $8 million on March 25, 2022. Remember, the asking price was $9.5 million. It sold for $8 million. Question number 1 is the consideration paid, the actual sales price? Yes. What day was the sale price agreed to? It was March 13th, 2022. Was this sale an arm's length open market transaction? And they indicate yes. So it was a motivated seller and a motivated buyer. Question 4, was there any other real estate included with the purchase? The answer, no. Does the purchaser intend to occupy the property? For question 11, yes. Question number 15, you'll notice that they are indicating that the condition of the building is an average condition. Do they intend to make any improvements or repairs to the property? As per question 16, they indicate they do. They're indicating that they will be painting asphalt. They will be leveling some floors. And they'll be doing some office and warehouse repairs. And they're estimating a total cost of $1 million on that. On page 36, again, they paid cash $8 million for the property. On page 37 is the status of title. You'll note that it is owned by Winpac Limited. On page 39, indicating the originating transfer of land there, and the consideration paid was $8 million. So on page 40, I have that land transfer document. So the transferor, per question or paragraph 3 there, the listed vendor is Imperies Transcontinental International, or sorry, Incorporated. Page 41, they're listing a consideration receipt of $8 million. And then if we turn to page 45, on that document, the transfer land document, they're indicating the transferee as Winpac Limited. They're indicating it was a fee simple sale. On page 46, Winpac is indicating that the fair market value is $8 million, as per paragraph 16 there. And then if we continue on to page 53, there is a signature from the Vice President and CFO of Winpac, indicating that what they are saying, sorry, I'm having a hard time reading this. Give me 1 second. Point number 4 at the top, in accordance to the Taxes Act, they're verifying that the fair market value of all the land as a whole is $8 million. The fair market value being $8 million. And again, it's signed by Larry Wallace, the Chief Financial Officer, and he's dating the document as March 23rd, 2022. On the following page, on page 54, I have a permit that was taken out by Winpac for the repairs that they indicated. So the description is landlord work on an existing warehouse. It includes exterior alterations, improvements, additions, and repairs totaling $385,000. And that was taken out October 21, 2022. So going back to my brief on page 3, so I have some rent comparables. Just let me know when you are there.
Page which?
Page 3, sorry.
Page 3, okay. All right.
So there I have some rent comparables. I like the subject. All comparables are industrial warehouses. All leases are current in relation to the reference date. Effective year built ranges from 1973 to 1990. Average wall heights range from 15 feet to 22 feet. Leasable areas range from approximately 61,000 square feet to 122,000 square feet. Net rents range from $6.60 per square foot to $9.37 per square foot. On the following page is our workup. So we're utilizing a net rental rate of $6.77 per square foot. We're utilizing a 4.5% market vacancy rate, 3% for non-recurrable expenses, $4 per square foot for vacancy shortfall. This works out to an NOI of $543,803. We're capitalizing at a rate of 6.7%. And this results in a rounded and assessed value of $8,116,000. Now, I'll just indicate this was all model driven. It had nothing to do with the sale, but again, it is indicative of what the market is willing to pay for this subject property. In the appendix, I also have some outside industry reports, which all indicate that over the last number of years, the Winnipeg industrial market has remained robust and demand has been in demand across the full range of industrial real estate property types. Vacancy has been low and stable. Rental rates have increased and cap rates have compressed and tended lower. So for the reasons stated above, and the amount paid for the subject property in the open market between a motivated seller and a motivated buyer, just 1 year prior to the reference date, I believe that the assessed value of $8,116,000 to be fair and equitable, and I respectfully ask that the board confirm this value. And I'm open to questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, questions, Mr. Story?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. Mr. Das Mohammed, have you inspected this property personally, or are those photos from a different inspection?
Those are done by my colleague, Mr. Merrick Frolick.
Okay, and have you ever visited this property specifically? Have you been in this?
Personally, no.
Okay. Are you aware then, through the course of your research on this file, that the purchaser, Winnipeg, purchased this property as they own an enormous campus directly next door at 100 Salto, and that would be about, I think that's about 640,000 square feet. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware that they own that building, yes.
Okay, and you'll know more about this than I do, but doesn't the IAAO standard talk about investigating those sales when you have owners who are atypically motivated for assemblage or purchasing adjoining properties?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so in my reading of the IAAO standard of verification of sales, and I understand that assessors are bound by that standard, does it not say that purchases of properties where the purchaser owns an adjoining, adjacent, or property in the vicinity where they are creating an assemblage, that those should be reviewed with scrutiny, as they may represent an atypical.
No, I'm not aware of that.
You're not aware of that, okay.
No.
Okay, but you are saying that this is all model derived anyway, so you're not considering the sale?
Correct, yes.
The model doesn't consider the sale in the creation of this?
When the model was generated, it didn't know about the sale.
Okay, so then I guess my question is, because you talked about the reports from the brokers, and I've got that information too. Can we agree that the brokers are suggesting cap rate compression for the better industrial assets of 0 to 25 basis points cycle over cycle?
I would agree with that.
Okay, and the modeled output in the previous cycle showed a 7.55 cap, which we didn't disagree with. And so now the model has adjusted the cap rate by 85 basis points.
I'm not aware of the previous, and I don't believe this is a hearing de novo, so I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, no, that's no problem. We'll get into that in my evidence. Okay, so it is all indeed modeled. Now, you have it as a light manufacturing property, but it's a warehouse, correct?
It was a manufacturing property when the prior owner had it. I believe Winpac is using it as a warehouse now.
Right, and that was indicated to you on that sales verification form, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, okay, so that's good for the first page. Land to building at 2.31. Can we agree that that's reasonably low?
No, actually, that is ideal. Even if you look at the listing on the listings that I provided, they indicate that it's a good land to plan ratio, ample parking, ample docks there.
That's it's a marketing document though, correct? Should apply some scrutiny to that. Is that not a marketing document?
It's a listing document.
Right. A listing document to market the
A
property.
2.4 to 1 land to plan ratio, in my opinion, is a good ratio.
Okay, and when the city does an adjustment for excess land, don't they typically adjust it down to 4 to 1?
It depends on the situation.
All right, now looking at these rental comps that you've provided, just goes through them very quickly. That first one, that is, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that is a Health Canada sanctioned cannabis production facility, correct?
Yes,
Okay, number 2, that's manufacturing, correct? That was Boeing and is now Macdon.
yes,
Okay, that third one is fine. But that is a renewal. That's Westran. They've been there for a number of years, correct?
yes.
Okay, and then the last one, that's a very short lease, correct? 1 year only.
Yes, but I don't imagine they'll be moving anytime soon.
Okay, but that is the Amazon warehouse.
Yes,
Okay, and can we agree that substantial capital went into fitting up that space for their
yes, and the rent reflects that, yes.
right, okay. Okay, now, because we've had discussions about this with other assessors in the past, are you aware of the structural issues with the subject property?
There is some flooring leveling issues, and that's why I believe the asking price was 9.5, and then they paid 8 million for it, indicating that there would be repairs required.
Okay, but you do know from previous discussions that they were not aware of that when the property was purchased. It's not a flooring issue. It's just-
No, I'm not aware of any of that.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, and I think, I mean, that's most of the brief. The rest is about the sale. We're suggesting that it's motivated. Lastly, page 26 of your brief, just further what I'm mentioning here. That note that you've blown up with the asterisk, newly acquired property, they mentioned a roll number where they've rolled the expenses into that roll number ending in 8,200, correct?
Sure, yeah.
And that is the larger, or well, that
Yes.
roll number has now changed, but that is 100 Salto, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think I'll end my questioning, Mr. Chair, and I thank you.
Okay, Ms. Linklater, any questions?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Purvis?
Just, sorry, I have a couple of questions. Looking at the comps, which one would you say is your best comp here?
Well, the building is a larger area, so what we try and do and it's hard to find comparable leases because most of the larger areas are owner occupied. So what I did here was I just expanded to include leases outside of the immediate property. So I believe the ones that are closer in size, 61,000 and 67,000 would probably be the better indication of what rent would be on that property.
Okay. And there was, sorry, I'm just trying to find the page. There was a diagram you had, and I just had like a small question on page 11.
Yep.
Okay, there's the site plan, and then on the site plan, there's a dotted line that kind of zags. What is that? I was just
I'm not sure what that is, but I found the site plan on a permit, so I included that. But I believe that might be the office area. There's a arrow indicating that it's an existing. Sorry, it's hard to read.
you didn't put it on.
Yeah, it's hard to read.
I couldn't read that, and then I thought maybe you drew it in or something.
No, I didn't draw. No, I just found it on a permit.
Okay, and then lastly, it's listed as 3 buildings, but it looks like effectively it's one building.
It was built over stages, so yeah, it's
Like they
one
all-
building but built over stages.
Okay. Right, that's my questions. Thank you.
Okay, just based on that last question where it says area of work, I noticed in the permits they discussed about changing loading docks or something like that. Could that be it? What they're doing there? Area?
Oh, so they were installing a new loading dock. They were leveling. Sorry, they were. What was your question? Sorry.
So I'm just wondering if that could indicate where they were doing the changes to loading docks.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Mr.
Excuse me.
Story.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Chair. I do have a question to direct.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Das Mohammed.
Good morning.
I'm just wanting some clarification. Did you indicate that they were not, the purchaser, Winpac, was not aware that there were issues with this building? Did you say
That's what
that?
Mr. Story is indicating, but if you look on the sales mailer, they do indicate that there is leveling issues. There's some other issues that they wanted to complete. And they're estimating that it was gonna cost $1 million. And you'll note that the subject was listed for 9.5 million and they paid 8 million. So
Right. So, and I'm not sure if you would know this, but did they have the building inspected? Did they have an engineer come in to give them an estimate for this repair?
Well, it is a big operation that they run. They own quite a big building right across from it. They've bought other buildings and they've demolished them to put new buildings on. So I think they would know what they're doing. So to spend $8 million without seeing anything,
Mm.
I would be floored if they did that. I am sure that they were aware of the issues, and that's why they paid less than the asking price.
All right. Perhaps Mr. Story has more information, but thank you. It's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Just as disclosure, I used to work in the building that they purchased and demolished many years ago. Okay, Mr. Story, you can begin your presentation.
Thank you, sir. One of my first jobs was on Salton, so that's, we have that in common, I guess. Just very quickly, while it's still top of mind, Ms. Linklater, you'd asked the assessor if the structural issues with the slab were known to the owner at the time of purchase. They were not. We've had many conversations with the owner. I've toured the property 2 or 3 times now. I believe it's 2 to be certain, and the last inspection it would have been around Christmas of last year with one of the assessors, so they would be aware of all this as well. We had some substantial discussion regarding a previous assessment that was settled at the municipal board. Okay, so ultimately, we have a building that was predominantly built in 1976. Mr. Purvis, you'd asked about why the city is saying there are 3 buildings. You're quite right. There's 1 building. It's just been expanded over the years, and I made a comment about 4-to-1 being typical for these late 70s industrial parks. That's what you'll typically see for the original construction in the Inkster Industrial Park, Murray Industrial Park as well. But over time, as the expansion has occurred, that land to building has shrunk, and that's not considered a positive. That would be considered a negative in the eyes of the market based on the fact that any further expansion will now be limited. So that's what we should consider when we're applying a cap rate. Now, ultimately, that sale, I'm going to suggest to you, was completely motivated. They own a very, very large industrial campus right across the street at 100 Salto. Okay, so again, a majority of the property was built in 1976. I calculate that to be about 80%. The wall height for all sections is reported to be 18 feet. That is not the case. They're about 10 to 12 feet in the office area, as is typical, and then clear heights of 17 feet throughout the warehouse. Okay, again, we are not considering the sale as it is highly motivated. So we're looking at this from a market perspective. There was a question regarding the cost to cure the deficiency. They're in the early stages, but their internal figures are suggesting 90 thousand to 150,000 to remediate the slab issue, and it has something to do with the water table below the slab foundation. That's the issue. So when there was a purchase and they said they were going to level the floors, when they went to level the floors, they discovered the issue with the slab. The floors are uneven in about, call it, half of the office area, which is now being used as just general storage. You'll see those photos in my brief. Okay, so ultimately, we've not considered the sale. We believe that it's completely motivated. So we did look to our previous workup on this property, and we did, well, we'll get to that in a moment. So we're trying to determine an appropriate net rent for the property. The city has suggested $6.77 per foot. I think we've established that the rental comps used to support that rate are vastly superior, and sure they're higher, but they're almost I don't think they're relatively comparable. So I've provided you with 7 comps. Now I think my best comparable, they are slightly older in terms of their effective age. They're mid to late 60s. A couple of them are early 60s. And they are varying sizes, but I'm trying to give you a good indication of the rental universe at this stage for these older properties, and I am looking for warehousing as opposed to manufacturing or distribution. So the best comp that I have is my comp number 5 on Barrie. It has, and all of these have issues with land to building. They're all zoned M2, and they all have sub-3 land to building ratios. I think that's important. I don't think that 2.3 is ideal. I think that potentially has a negative effect either on cap or rental rate or both. So ultimately, that indicator on Barrie is at $5.99. It's a fresh rent as of May 22, so certainly germane to our reference date, and it is smaller. So with that consideration to that and the overall average of the rents that I've proposed here at $5.99, I've taken the office down a touch to $5.50, and that is in consideration of the very specific issue with about half of the office not being usable based on that uneven floor that needs to be remediated, and the fact that half of the office is renovated, it's in good shape, and then the other half is in poor condition, and you can see that through the photos. So on balance, we've applied a blended rent of $5.89 to the 89,274 square feet, resulting in a market rent per annum for the subject of $526,259. Of course, that's in line with how we treated this property in the past. In terms of vacancy, we have provided you with a 4% vacancy. We've typically used 3.5. 4% I think is reasonable. So that's in line with market indicators and with specific consideration for the subject. So we haven't over adjusted the vacancy to account for the fact that a large amount of the space is not usable to its optimal use, but we've applied 4%, which I think is fair. Shortfall is not in dispute, although I believe we calculated the actual shortfall of this building to be 555. So we applied 4%, which is typical of market, but we do recognize that there are some inefficiencies leading to a higher than average shortfall. We will capture that in our cap rate. So ultimately, the cap rate is the largest part of our dispute here. I had mentioned that in the past, in the last cycle, and this was not an appeal that was disputed. This was a modeled output with a 7.55 cap. We would typically use 7.5 for this building. We would have used that at that last cycle, but we thought that the assessment was fair. We don't see any indication in the market that there's an 85 basis point adjustment for these types of properties. We do, however, see, and Mr. Dosbaum is quite right, we do see an improvement in the industrial sector, and we've captured that with a cap rate compression of 25 basis points. That is supported by the brokers. I've submitted my entire cap rate study. You've all heard it before, but we do have a current and previous cap rate cycle information table that's on page 16 of my standalone study, and it does indeed support, and I believe Mr. Das Mohammed agreed with me, that we're seeing anywhere between 0 and 25 basis point adjustments to the cap rate cycle over cycle. So given the unique issues that we have with the property that I've discussed here, and without consideration of the sales, we do believe it to be highly motivated. We've applied a cap rate of 7.25%. Okay, so that gives us, and I have made an adjustment, a lump sum adjustment of $100,000 based on that slab remediation. The cap rate that was put out before did not consider that, so we are making that below the line adjustments in our income valuation. So our value based on an NOI of 475,769, capitalized with a rate of 7.25, comes to 6,562,235. We make that adjustment as any knowledgeable purchaser would now be aware of that issue with the slab. And again, we have preliminary estimates between 90 to 150,000. I've tried to be conservative in my application of that adjustment at only $100,000. Leading us to an indicated market value of 6,462,325. Again, that rounds to 6,462,000. The balance of my brief includes the photos. You can see the office space that's in poor to functional condition. Starts on page 26. That's from my inspection as of December 1, 2023. That's my last inspection of this property. You can flip through the photos at your leisure. You can see that there's varying degrees of quality in terms of the space. I don't have the, just see here. Mr. Das Mohammed, I believe, has the photos of the renovated office, which are just quite reasonable. I don't have them here. So I apologize for that, but we do see that we have warehousing going on in this building. And I've included photos again of that low quality office. That sale, again, highly motivated. So we're not considering it. And then my final page will show you that workup that I've mentioned again, that uncontested city value with the 7.55 cap. And just to be fair, the modeled assessment at this stage today is coming out at it's over 40% on an increase based on percentage, which we believe to be far too high. So we do respectfully submit that the value for this cycle not exceed 6,462,000, and I'm very happy to take your questions, and I thank you.
Okay, just on one point on we don't consider the assessment on the previous cycle or anything like that. We don't compare assessments as per se. Okay, so question, Mr. Das Mohammed. I think you're muted there.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Story, you would agree that this building was up for sale at the beginning of 2021, is that correct?
Yes.
At least 2021?
Well, hold on. I think that's correct. If that's what your sales mailer indicates, then yes, they were asking $9.5 million for it.
Okay, and you indicated that this is a motivated purchase by your client?
Yes, they own the adjacent property, and it's over 600,000 square feet. So that can only be described as a industrial campus. That's an enormous industrial building. That would be one of the biggest industrial buildings in the city of Winnipeg. And it's right.
If they were so motivated, why didn't they just purchase it right when it came up for sale?
Well, they negotiated a price that was $1.5 million lower than the asking price. So I'm not.
Following year,
I'm not
that
sure.
was the following year, right?
Okay, so it sat on the market unsold. So I don't know that asking price is a good indicator of value.
Okay, and then Winnipeg has bought different buildings to increase their campus, is that correct?
That you mentioned that, I'm not sure if they've purchased other buildings, but I wouldn't be surprised. That makes sense. I have not handled the appeal of Salto, but my understanding is that yes, they've been doing a large assemblage in the Prairie Industrial Park.
So they're accustomed to buying buildings and renovating them. So you would agree that they would know the condition of the building before they buy it?
What I know from speaking with the owner is that they were not aware of this slab issue when purchasing the property.
Okay, so why would they indicate that there were repairs needed to be done for leveling them on the sales mailer?
They needed to level the floor. So if you have an issue where you realize that you have uneven floors, think of a house, for example. You will recognize the symptom, but you might not recognize the root cause. So I know that they brought in engineers and they did substantial work to determine that there was some issue with, I think it was a historic stream or some such thing that ran under the slab, and that's what's caused the damage. So they were not aware of it at the time of purchase. They've done preliminary work to determine the cost to cure. Their preliminary estimates are between $90,000 and $150,000. And I know this, Mr. Khalas Mohammed, from speaking directly to the owner.
Okay, so you're indicating that the vice president and CFO indicated a market value which was incorrect in 2022?
No, they're indicating that that's what they paid for it. I don't think that they were particularly interested. This is my assumption that they were not interested in the minutiae of that purchase price being used against them in a realty hearing. And clearly they would be motivated. Anybody looking at the sale would understand that that's a motivated purchase.
You would agree that they pay taxes on the what they declare as fair market value, though, would they not?
Yeah.
Land transfer taxes?
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. They paid $8 million for it. My contention is not that they paid $8 million for it. My contention is that they would have been motivated to overpay potentially based on the location, the proximity to the larger industrial campus. So they would likely pay more.
The wording is fair market value. He signed a signature that said fair market value, and I'm just asking you, that's what he assumed the fair market value was, and that's what they paid
I think
land
that
transfer taxes on?
most people would they would simply say, yes, we paid $8 million for it, and that's what they wrote in. I don't think they were considering a realty appeal at that stage. That's my sense.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Purvis, questions?
1 second. Just gotta have to get back up to. I was just looking at page 22 of your report, which is your CAP study.
Yes.
I guess I'm not fully understanding why, like in your study, we've got an average of 6.85% cap rate, a median at 6.43%. You're asking for 7.25%. I don't fully understand how in your own study we then jump up another.
Sure. Yeah, no, so our study, now that's just to be very clear, Mr. Purvis, on page 22, we're looking at these sales. So we looked at actual sales in the market, and in order to determine the sales activity in our universe. Now, those cap rates are not meant to be directly comparable, but rather to give us an indication of the market. And once again, if you go to page 23, those are our cap rate conclusions. So we bifurcate by quality. Class B would be considered, this would be considered a Class B building. So this range ought to be somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5%. We've remarked again that the cap rate compression for these properties cycle over cycle is about 25 basis points. We agreed with 7.55 in the past, and we are simply suggesting that we're following our own methodology to suggest that if we see a 25 basis point adjustment based on an amelioration to the sales activity in the industrial market, which is supported by the brokers, then that 7.5 becomes 7.25. And frankly, that makes sense. We have lower ceiling heights, we have lower land to building ratios, and we also have a building that is about 80% built in 1976. So this would fall squarely in that Class B section. So at 7.25, that makes sense. And I appreciate your question, but it is those specific inputs are not meant to be directly comparable without adjustment.
So I'm just looking at those inputs. They all have very similar wall heights, similar build period. we're looking, some of them are even older than the subject property. Just seems like they are fairly comparable.
Well, we have, I mean, at 1301 Inkster, we have an 8.03 cap. Although it is smaller, so, yeah, so I would, yeah, ultimately, I think we feel good at 7.25%. And again, these sales are just meant to show you a broad swath of sales in the market, so.
You also said the office portion of this property is where the heaving floor issue is,
Absolutely, yeah.
so it's only partially occupied.
Well, they have full occupancy, but they cannot, they're not using, about half of the office space for office, they're using it for paper storage, and that's, you can see the photos in my brief, so they're just keeping boxes there.
Okay, and do they need to use that space, or like, do they have staff that would go there otherwise?
Yes. Yes,
600.
they do. Yeah, they require that for office area, which they can't use, so it's an issue. And they can't renovate it, so if you see the renovated portion of the office, it would be considered standard to good condition. And then the other half of the office would be considered, well, it's unrenovated, and it can't be renovated until such time as that heating slab issue is remediated.
Okay, and the photos that we're looking at in the interior, those were all taken by you during one of your site visits?
Yes, sir.
Like I'm on page 33, 34, 35, those ones.
I took these photos in December of 2023.
Okay, yeah, there's a guy walking down a hallway. That's you that took that photo.
That's one of the assessors, actually, yeah.
And that was the assessor. Like that those photos were taken at the same time that the city of Winnipeg took its photos. That sort
I
of.
believe so. I can tell by the Christmas tree in the lobby, that would have been from the same special.
Good timing. It a year later, we're back at the same time.
Yeah.
Those are my questions for now.
Hey, Ms.
Mr.
Linkletter,
Harden, I apologize. I had one more question, if you don't mind.
sure, go ahead.
Mr. Story, on your page 22 in your cap rates, you do include the subject
Yeah, that
in your
should
cap
not be
rate
in there.
study.
That's, yes, that should be removed. That's an error. That's correct.
And you came in at a cap rate of 6.28 for that.
Based on an $8 million sale, yeah. Which, yeah, but that should not be in there. We'll adjust that for the next cycle, or for the next hearing, I should say.
So you did look into this for your 2023 or 2025 cycle, and you knew what the building condition was, and you still use that as your cap rate evidence?
Yeah, that should not be, again, once again, that sale price is motivated. That should not be in there. I'm not sure why that's in there, but that's a good point, and it will be removed.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Linkletter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Story, did you indicate how much this repair is going to cost?
It's estimated between 90 and 150,000. And I've adjusted to 100,000, but that would be considered a very high level estimate at this stage, based on my discussion with the owner. So they're estimating the cost to cure at 90 to 150, so I've applied 100,000.
All right. And do you know the square footage that this is affecting in the office space?
Well, no, because I don't know if it's going to be half of the office space or if it's going to be all of it, or once they start digging it up, how much that's going to be affecting it. So I'm not sure in terms of on a square footage basis. It's about half of the office as far as we know right now. It's a good question. I'm not sure. I know that they're estimating 90 to 150, but I don't know in terms of the overall square footage that would be affected once they actually get in there and start making those adjustments.
Okay. So then you inspected this property in December of 23, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Which is, 11 months ago.
Mhm.
And they have not started these repairs?
No, it's in the same condition that it was when I visited it. I confirmed that with you.
All right, I thank you. That's all my questions.
All right, and I have no questions that haven't been asked and answered, so thank you for that. Do you wish summation, Mr. Das Mohammed,
I do not, thank you.
Mr. Story?
Yeah, just very quickly, Mr. Chair, we believe that the sale, in this instance shouldn't be considered. Again, it's highly motivated. And when we look at this property from a market perspective for a user who's not motivated by expanding their large campus, we believe that the value that we've submitted of $6,462,000 is well supported, and I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We've now heard all items on today's agenda, so this hearing is now adjourned. And thank you for your capable presentations.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.
Okay, and to the panel,
Bye.
we'll just take a quick break, then come back for deliberations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I'll take us offline.
Thank you, you too. Thank you, everyone.